Enterprise asset management is a very unique category. It requires unique integrations as well as the channels that you need to manage as part of your enterprise asset management. And that's why sometimes it needs to be a best of breed system. So, which are the top 10 EAM systems in 2024? That's what we are going to discuss in this video. So, let's dive in. Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Gupta. I'm principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm. We help our clients with digital transformation strategy, system selection, change management, as well as implementation. On that note, let's go back to today's topic, which is going to be top 10 EAM systems in 2024. Before we look at the list, let's define how we define this particular category, which is going to be your EAM system. In general, this is going to be slightly more best of breed. In some cases, these systems might be integrated with your ERP just because that embeddedness is going to be required. But in general, the kind of data structure that is going to be required as part of EAM, the kind of integrations that you need to have as part of EAM, in general, this might be a best of breed category, and you might need a best of breed system in general, depending upon your design, depending upon your preferences, and depending upon how your business transactions are structured. Now, EAM also has a lot of overlap when you look at the Industry 4.0 scenarios, whether you are looking at integration with the edge devices, when you have to capture all of that data, because that data drives when you are going to do any sort of predictive maintenance. The kind of data structure that you are going to require as part of your enterprise asset management category is going to be slightly different from let's say, if you look at the ERP data model. In general, when you look at ERP data model, they don't necessarily store the locations. For example, let's say if you're going to have a lot of different buildings and you are sort of moving the inventory between those, and you need to capture the equipment as part of those buildings. And sometimes this data could be very hierarchical, especially if you are going to be in the facility management, asset management, and these assets could get very, very, very complex. And that's why sometimes you do require the best of breed system. So for the most part, this list is going to capture all of those best of breed systems as opposed to the module that you are going to find as part of your ERP. The criteria that we have used to compile this list is going to be the product share, the acquisition strategy focused on this EAM product. So if any company is investing a lot in their EAM portfolio, in general, they are going to rank much higher on the list. Product roadmap, community, ecosystem, win rate, technology strategy, as well as the investors. So these are some of the factors that we have considered to compile this list. So now let's look at the list. Number 10 on our list is Assetworks. And Assetworks is going to be a very SMB focused product. The strengths that you're looking at from the Assetworks perspective is the data model is going to be friendlier. You are looking at cheaper implementation. It's very SMB friendly, and it can cover both properties and fleets. And in general, the workflows that you're going to have for your facilities and fleets are going to be very different, just because for fleets, when you are going to have a system designed only for fleets, they are going to have very deep integrations directly with OEMs to be able to get the data directly from your fleets, trucks, etc. Those capabilities are not going to be with your building. Now, for building, the EM product is going to be slightly different, because the kind of sustainability metrics that you're going to require as part of your building real estate, the construction, the kind of integrations that you're going to require. For example, let's say if you're in public sector, not-for-profit centric spaces, then you are going to be collaborating a lot with your city, etc., because they are going to require all of these data sets. So the workflows are going to be different. The data sets that you are going to require are going to be very different. So in general, the systems that we have in the market, sometimes they are going to be designed only to cover either fleets or properties, But in the case of Assetworks, they can cover both of the asset types. Then they are going to have some more unique features. For example, let's say if you look at polling and you need to poll these assets, what that would mean is you are checking periodically whether those assets are performing. They are down. If they are down, then you need to send your technicians to be able to perform any sort of maintenance. So all of those capabilities are going to be there with your Assetworks. Now, the limitations that you are going to run into with Assetworks is it is limited to fewer geographies. So you might not be able to cover all of them if you are going to be present in many different geographies. So that is something you might want to vet which geography you are in and whether they can support that or not. And when you look at the cross-functional scenarios, for example, let's say if you are going to have any of the inventory-centric scenarios and you are trying to add the inventory, for the most part, the smaller systems that to operate is your inventory is probably not going to be coded. So you are going to run into scenarios where you are simply using text-based inventory. So obviously you have the traceability because of that. But at the same time, the reason if they are using the text-based inventory, the implementation is going to be far cheaper. It's going to be far easier. It's going to be slightly easier to use. But then you are also going to have the data integrity issues. Because of that, you will not be able to do all of those inventory costing centric scenarios if you care for the cost as well. So those are going to be some of the limitations, but those are some of the trade-offs that you're going to have just because you are using a simpler system and you are limited on your budget. The other limitations that you are going to run into is scenarios such as your enterprise search for your inventory items. Now, generally, the enterprise search requires your inventory items to be coded. And if your inventory is going to be just the text-based, it becomes very hard for the systems to be able to support those capabilities that you are going to find with some of the other systems. So again, it's all because of their design, just because they are easier to use. So you are going to have all of these limitations. So that's number 10. Now, number 9 on our list is Aiva. And Aiva is going to be ideal for OT-centric industries. And the perspective that generally EAM platforms take is sometimes they are going to be very deep into your Industry 4.0. They are going to be heavily integrated as part of your CAD layer, MES layer. Sometimes they are going to be owned by your hardware players because they are trying to push these platforms as part of their machine so that you can understand their machines, you can track the OEE. Sometimes they are going to guard all of these platforms, so they are not going to be as vendor agnostic. So their goal is to provide you the software platform that you can use to be able to control their workflow. But from their perspective, it's helping them in guarding their revenue so that you are going to be locked on their machines. So for the most part, the integrations are probably going to be limited on those platforms if they are going to be owned by those hardware vendors, because they are trying to promote as many of their machines. They are trying to sell those machines. So that's going to be a limitation. The other strengths that you're looking at from the Aiva perspective is this is probably going to be one of the most OT friendly because it is installed in those industries. But for the other industries, for example, let's say if you look at mining or if you look at transportation, for those industries, it might not be the most friendly. And Aiva is also a very globally adopted product. So you're going to get probably the global footprint in terms of sizing. Assetworks is a very small product. Aiva is slightly larger product. So that's the real comparable. So if you're going to be, let's say, in the mid-market, etc., then probably your Aiva is going to be a better product. The limitations that you're looking at from the Aiva perspective is the technology is clunky, legacy, so UI is not going to be as modern as some of the other platforms, might not be fit for every single industry, and might not be as easy to learn as well as implement just because they are trying to serve the mid-market enterprise. And once you get there, then your data layers are going to be far more complex, hierarchical. So again, different needs, different problems. So if you are going to be in mid-market and you care for those OT-centric capabilities, then Aiva could be a great fit. And that's number 9. Now, number 8 on our list is Upkeep maintenance management. And this is going to be very similar to your Assetworks. This is very SMB friendly, cloud native solution. But for the most part, the challenges that you are going to get with your Assetworks, they are going to be very similar with your upkeep, maintenance management as well. So the strengths you are looking at, it is going to be SMB friendly, implementation is going to be cheaper, it's probably going to be affordable, it's going to be mobile friendly. So all of those benefits, again, very similar to your Assetworks. The limitations that you are going to run into with your upkeep is limited asset and location hierarchies. So Assetworks could do both your properties and fleets. Here, you are not going to be able to cover as many asset types, and it is going to be limited to your location as well, just like your Assetworks. And then we have seen some of the users reporting the glitches with the system. So that is something to keep in mind with these smaller systems. If they are not as well funded, then you might have those issues as well with these systems. And if you're looking for the complex scenarios, such as if you're looking for reoccurring work orders, and we have nowadays, some of the companies are adopting those subscription-based business models, and they are trying to adopt the consumption-based business models for these hardware as well. And if you're trying to bill your client, and if you have very complicated scenarios around billing related to that, that's where you are going to run into issues with these platforms. They are designed for very simple monitoring and maintenance. They are not necessarily designed for those costing, billing, complicated financial scenarios. So those are going to be some of the limitations, and that's number 8. Now, number 7 on our list is Brightly Asset Essentials, and this is owned by Siemens now. So Siemens is a hardware provider, so obviously their incentive is going to be to sell their machines, and that's why they have acquired this company, that they are trying to embed, integrate, as closely align with their machines as much as possible. So overall, when you look at the product, even though it is owned by Siemens, but it is still a very small product compared to your Assetworks or Upkeep maintenance. Those are going to be the right comparables probably. So it is also going to be SMB friendlier for any of the Siemens assets that you are going to use. You are probably going to have all of those integrations pre-baked, pre-tested, pre-flavored. So if the only machines that you are using are from Siemens, then this could be a great platform. But if you have to use the machines from their competitors, obviously, then you might run into integration challenges. In general, they are not going to support those integrations. And the reason for that is because they are trying to sell their machines, so they are going to make it easier for their own machines. The other limitations that you're looking at from the Brightly perspective is the reporting is going to be fairly limited. Again, the purpose is to provide you whatever is happening in their machine, so the perspective is very limited. Again, it's a kind of a feature with the machine as opposed to a true EAM platform. And then you are going to have limited scalability for the enterprise use cases when you are looking for true enterprise asset management platform to be able to manage your technician crew, to be able to manage your preventive maintenance scenarios across your asset types. This might not be the best fit. So that's number 7. Number 6 on our list is MeanX. And MeanX is going to be very comparable to your upkeep maintenance as well as your Assetworks. It is very mid-market friendly. So it is going to be slightly bigger product than your Assetworks. But overall, from the technology footprint perspective, it's very cloud native, mobile friendly, etc. But it's going to have a lot more layers compared to your Assetworks. So the strength that you're looking at is it's mid-market friendly, easy to learn and configure. And again, it's going to be mobile friendly. The other limitations that you have from MeanX perspective is more suitable for facility management than fleet. So you are going to have a lot more layers for facility management. So it might be able to cover those complicated facility management scenarios. But for fleet, for transportation companies, and if you are going to have your in-house fleets, then it might not be the best fit. Then scalability issues with complex data sets, such as your nested locations. Again, those layers are going to be limited in general. This is not meant to be your enterprise product. It is a very mid-market centric product. So those layers are going to be limited, and the security layers are going to be limited as well. So those are some of the limitations, and that's number 6. Number 5 on our list is Fix. And Fix is a very mid-market friendly system as well. So the right comparable here is probably going to be MeanX. It is very cloud native, mobile friendly platform. The strengths that you're looking at is, again, it's going to be very easy to learn and configure. It's going to be very mobile friendly. The limitations that you're looking at is the auditability and the controls on the work orders are going to be fairly limited. Again, when you get into those financial scenarios, that's where you need a slightly more complex data model. But because of that complexity, the systems are going to be harder to use, harder to implement. So people don't appreciate that. So if you're looking for ease of use, you are probably going to have limited auditability as well as controls on the work orders. So some of the scenarios that we see with these issues is that sometimes you are going to have the work orders and your expectation is going to be, especially if you are used to a very ERP centric processes, that if you have closed the work orders, then you should not be able to perform any sort of transactions. But in this particular case, those controls are probably not going to be built just because underneath, they don't necessarily have that relational data model to be able to support those accounting and financial centric scenarios. So for the most part, the use case here is going to be that, okay, if you're looking for very simple operational scenarios where you are simply trying to perform the maintenance, etc., then for those scenarios, it could be a great fit. But the other scenarios, let's say if you have complicated billing, if you require complicated financial controls on your work orders, if you are going to have a lot of edits on your work orders, that's where you are going to run into issues. Generally, the approach that companies take is they are going to use a best of breed product just from the operational perspective. After that, their admin effort is going to be increased substantially because you are not doing that heavy lifting as part of your front end process. So for back end, the work is going to be increased because they will have to figure out all of these things. And sometimes they might not even have the traceability to be able to do that, depending upon what their front end process is reporting to them. So you are going to run into all of these issues. But let's say if you want to decouple your architecture and if you want simplified process because your technicians are expecting that, or if you are trying to expedite the transaction from your maintenance perspective, depending upon where your critical success factors are. So for example, let's say if you are going to lose $1 million just because your machine is down for a minute versus, your accounting admin effort is probably going to be, let's say, $100,000 in reconciling later on, then the wiser choice might be that, okay, you decouple this process, expedite the transaction, perform the maintenance as fast as possible because you are trying to hit those KPIs, but then figure out everything from the financial accounting perspective later on. But let's say if your accounting processes are going to be, or if you're increasing the admin effort substantially in the back end of the process just because you are trying to simplify your front end of the process, in those cases, it might not make sense. You might want to get something that is going to be slightly more embedded as part of your ERP workflows than getting something that is going to be best of breed, decoupled, the kind of architecture that systems such as your Fix is going to support. The other limitation that you're looking at from the Fix perspective is the limited scalability for enterprise use cases and asset types. So it might not be able to support all of those hierarchies that you are going to find with systems such as your IFS or with IBM. Those systems are going to support far richer asset types. They are going to have a lot more hierarchies as well as use cases to be able to support those enterprise grade scenarios. And then you are going to have the data integrity issues just because the data model is very loose in general with Fix. So that's number 5. Number 4 on our list is Oracle EAM. And Oracle EAM is a very enterprise-grade EAM product, especially designed for companies that are going to be on your Oracle Cloud ERP. And this is where you are looking at those enterprise-grade scenarios where you have very deep hierarchy of those assets that you are trying to manage. You have very diverse asset types. So for the most part, from the data model perspective, you are going to get a lot more with these products, but you might not have as many pre-baked integrations that you are going to find with the smaller systems in the SMB sector. So overall, your implementation is going to be higher. You are probably going to have the steep learning curve in using this. Your implementation is going to require a lot more expertise internally, externally, all of those. And the people are going to find that these systems are very hard to use in general. So the strengths that you're looking at are going to be enterprise grade capabilities. And then the other strength that we have is the predictive maintenance based on real real-time sensor data analytics. So these capabilities are going to be built as part of your Oracle EAM portfolio, but you would still require a lot of consulting to be able to support those integrations, to be able to get the data. And based on that, enabling those workflows would require a lot of consulting help in general. So unless you are enterprise company and you are on Oracle ERP, this might not be the best fit for you. And support complex assets to support reliability analysis, and reliability is going to be a huge topic in general when you are going to be in slightly more IT, media, telecom communities. When you are trying to hit those reliability metrics, your SLAs are going to be part of that as well, especially if you are managing assets for your customers and you have to hit all of those. That's where your Oracle EAM is going to be a great fit. The limitations that you're looking at from the Oracle EM perspective is it's probably going to be expensive, and then you are probably going to have a steep learning curve and might require several add-ons for integrated capabilities. So that's number 4. Number 3 on our list is IBM Maximo. And IBM Maximo is probably one of the most adopted asset management product, especially for enterprises. They do really well in public sector, not-for-profit, etc. So the strength that you're looking at from the Maximo perspective is they have very deep enterprise-grade capabilities to be able to support all of those complicated scenarios, the hierarchies, different asset types, etc. The overall architectural model is going to be very similar to your Oracle EAM, where you are going to get far deeper capabilities from the data model perspective, from the process model perspective, but then you are not going to get as many pre-baked integrations. So whatever issues that you have with Oracle EAM, they are probably going to be applicable with your IBM Maximo as well, which means that it's probably going to be hard to use. It's going to require a lot more training, change management. You are going to be investing a lot more in general with the implementation as well to be able to enable all of those use cases that are going to be pre-enabled, pre-flavored with slightly more prescriptive systems. So, but these are going to be highly customizable in general because of support for the data model underneath. So the other strengths that we have from the IBM Maximo perspective is the hierarchies and the attributes, and those attributes need to be supported with each of the asset. Sometimes there could be thousands and thousands of attributes that need to be tracked as part of each of the assets because they impact your reporting, they impact your planning, etc. So you need to have all of those. And then complex scheduling rules as well as workflows when you are trying to maintain a lot of assets for yourself, for your clients, and you need those enterprise grade capabilities. That's where your IBM Maximo is probably going to be a great fit. The limitations that you're looking at is the mobile capabilities are going to be substantially limited. The learning curve is going to be higher, as I mentioned, again, with any of the enterprise products, and you are probably going to require a lot of add-ons customization as part of your implementation. So that's number 3. Number 2 on our list is Hexagon EM. And this is a very enterprise grade EAM as well. There is a backstory. The Hexagon product, this used to be owned by Infor, and now they have sold it, and Hexagon is keeping that. So they are still going to have very tight alignment with any of the Infor installations. But at the end of the day, Hexagon is going to be a machine provider, and they are trying to sell their machine for the most part. So they are going to have much tighter alignment in general with the EAM product, even though the capabilities are going to be slightly more enterprise grade, but their incentive is going to be to integrate much tighter with their own assets, their own machines, so that companies buy them. They are going to be very comparable to your IBM Maximo and Oracle EAM. The difference that you're going to find with Hexagon EAM is they are going to be slightly more OT friendly, as opposed to, let's say, if you look at the property management or the transportation management, in those scenarios, they might not have as many layers, or they might not be as detailed in those capabilities. So the strengths that you are looking at, the user privileges are going to be fairly detailed. In general, if you look at any of the Infor products, they are known for their workflow, security, user-controlled processes, customization. That's where your EAM is going to be really handy. And ability to support complex asset installations. Again, if you're a very complex manufacturer, you have a lot of different assets that you are trying to track as well as maintain. For those, your Hexagon EAM is probably going to be a great fit. And again, they have the enterprise-grade capabilities to support most asset types, just like your IBM Maximo, etc. So it's going to be a great enterprise product. The limitations are going to be very similar to your IBM Maximo, which is going to be your legacy UI, just because it's a very legacy technology. And then IBM Maximo is probably going to have slightly superior technology just because they have done some work in the cloud native space. Hexagon EM is the legacy UI, and then you are going to have limited mobile capabilities, and the documentation is likely to be poorer on side as well. So that's number two. Now, number one on our list is IFS EAM, and this is the enterprise grade EAM. It is very well adopted, especially if you look at industries such as your MRO, airlines, oil and gas, telecom. All of those industries use EAM. They are going to have very complex scheduling from the asset maintenance perspective. They are going to have very complex assets. In general, their workflows are going to be very intertwined with your field service workflows as well. And that's another benefit that you have with IFS. They have two best of breed enterprise grade products. One is going to be your field service. The other is going to be your enterprise asset management. And those two marry together for these industries and where you are going to require these capabilities together. That's where your IFS is going to be a great fit. Now, comparing this with other enterprise grade products, IBM Maximo or Hexagon EM, IFS technology is going to be superior. So it's going to be slightly easier to use. But at the same time, you have the underlying data model that is going to be able to support your enterprise grade scenarios, whether you look at this more from the capabilities perspective, customization perspective, or workflow security perspective. All of those capabilities are going to be part of your IFS EAM. And then they have far deeper predictive maintenance as well as the facility maintenance capabilities. They are investing a lot in the AI scenarios as well. In this particular case, you need to collect a lot of data. You need to analyze anomalies to be able to detect the patterns. And in their case, they are mentioning very expensive assets. For those, you require these capabilities. Otherwise, you are going to lose a lot of money. And in these scenarios, you probably would require a disconnected architecture because the downtime for your asset matters. And if you are going to slow down your transactions just because you are marrying your financial data with your operational data, sometimes that could slow down your transactions in these industries. That might not be acceptable just because they are trying to meet the SLA from the operational scheduling perspective, but at the same time, they might lose a lot of money if they don't maintain them timely. So the disconnected architecture is probably going to be more relevant in these cases. That might not be true for every single industries. The limitations that you are going to run into with IFS EAM is overall the language packs are going to be limited. That is something we hear from users all the time, and it would definitely require consulting help. It is not something that you can implement on your own. It's a very complicated product in general, and it's probably going to be very expensive as well, just because it's very enterprise grade. So that's number one. If you enjoyed this video, we are going to include the link that is going to have much deeper analysis. So you might want to check that. We publish these videos on a weekly basis. So you might want to like and subscribe on YouTube. If you prefer audio form, this podcast is also available on Spotify and Google. So you might want to head there and subscribe if you like. We publish our digital transformation report. And if you have not checked our 2024 report, you might want to do that. We are going to include the link of that as well. On that note, thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you in the next video.